Where are they? Margaret's voice tore through my office like the crack of thunder on a quiet night. The shrill sound made me jump in my chair, my pen slipping from my fingers. She stood in the doorway, my ex-mother-in-law. Every inch of her controlled and furious, her perfectly polished nails digging into the thick manila envelope she clutched like a weapon. Her eyes, sharp and full of accusation, locked on me as if I were prey, and behind her stood Amanda, my ex-husband's sister, her face just as stormy and flushed with anger. "Where are who?" I asked carefully, forcing calm into my voice as I gestured to my assistant to hold my calls. It had been 5 long years since my divorce from their precious David. 5 years of blessed silence from the Henderson family. I had hoped never to see any of them again, but here they were, uninvited, in my office, carrying that same air of judgment I remembered too well. "Don't play dumb with us, Victoria," Margaret spat, storming toward my desk. Her heels clicked like gunfire on the marble floor. "Our grandchildren. David's children. The ones you've been hiding from us for the past 6 years." For a moment, I could only stare, her words spinning in my head like static. "What children?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "David and I never had kids." Amanda stepped forward then, her eyes burning with something between anger and disbelief. She yanked the envelope from her mother's hands, spilling photographs across my desk, scattering the neatly stacked case files I had been reviewing. "Stop lying, Victoria," she said coldly. "We've seen them." My hands trembled as I reached for the first photograph. It showed 2 children, a boy and a girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, laughing as they played in a backyard. Their dark hair shimmered in the sunlight, and for a fleeting second, my breath caught. There was something hauntingly familiar in their faces, the boy's chin, the girl's eyes. But I didn't know them. I had never seen these children in my life. "I don't understand," I murmured, looking up into their accusing faces. "These aren't my children. David and I tried for years, remember? That's part of why we divorced. We couldn't have kids." "More lies?" Margaret snapped, her voice rising to a sharp pitch. "We have proof. Medical records showing you were pregnant, birth certificates, school enrollment papers, everything." My head spun. The room tilted slightly as disbelief flooded me. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I was never pregnant. Never gave birth. We tried fertility treatments. They all failed. You know that. But they weren't listening." "Get out," I said finally, standing up, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "I don't know what kind of game this is, but I want you both out of my office." "Right now," Amanda smirked. "Or what? You'll move the kids again? Hide them somewhere else? Maybe another state like you did last time?" "Last time?" My voice cracked. "What are you talking about? I don't have children. I've never moved any." Margaret's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. "We're calling our lawyer. We have rights as grandparents, and you can't keep them from us forever." I reached for my own phone, fumbling to unlock it. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my composure as my pulse raced. "Let's get lawyers involved, because I can prove I've never had children." I dialed Sarah, my divorce attorney, who had stood by me through the worst of David's manipulation. If anyone could untangle this madness, it was her. As the phone rang, Margaret continued to rant, waving photos in my face. Each one showed those same children, blowing out candles on a birthday cake, splashing in the ocean, sitting beside a Christmas tree. Their smiles were bright, innocent. Too real. When Sarah finally answered, I spoke quickly, trying to keep my voice even. "Sarah, I need you to come to my office right now. David's family is here. They're saying I've been hiding children. They have photos and documents." There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice came through, calm and sharp as glass. "Don't say another word. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't let them leave." Before I could respond, my assistant Jackie poked her head into the room, eyes wide. "Victoria, there's a man here asking about the children, too. Says he's a private investigator hired by Mr. Henderson." My stomach dropped. David. Of course. He was behind this, but why? "Send him in," I said, meeting Margaret's triumphant glare. "Let's see what he thinks he's found." The man who entered looked uncomfortable the moment he crossed the threshold. He was tall, maybe mid-40s, his suit wrinkled, his manner cautious. Frank Moore, he introduced himself quietly. Private investigator. He opened a folder thick with papers and photographs. Mrs. Reed, he began, addressing Margaret and Amanda instead of me, has been living under multiple aliases. She's moved these children between 3 different states in the past 6 years, always just ahead of Mr. Henderson's attempts to locate them. That's a lie, I burst out. I've lived in the same house for 8 years, worked in this firm for 10. Anyone here can confirm that. But Frank only looked regretful as he pulled out more documents, school records, medical files, even birth certificates. All showing my name, Victoria Reed, as the mother of twins born 6 years ago. My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the edge of my desk, my breath shallow. I would remember giving birth. I would remember children. Wouldn't I? A horrible thought crept in. That dark period years ago, when I'd been on heavy medication, lost in depression. There had been weeks, maybe months, that blurred together in fog. Could it be possible? Could I have forgotten something so monumental? Before the panic could consume me, Sarah burst into the room. Her presence changed everything. "Everyone sit down," she commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "Victoria, not another word. Mr. Moore, I want to see every document you've brought. Now. And I want the exact date you were hired and by whom." As Sarah took control, I sat in silence, staring down at the photos spread before me. Those children's faces smiling up at me like ghosts from a life I never lived. The boy's mischievous eyes, the girl's crinkled nose, just like David's when he laughed. But they weren't mine. They couldn't be. The next morning, I sat across from Sarah in her office. Between us lay the same stack of documents: birth certificates, reports, photos. She'd spent all night going through them. "These are good," she said finally, holding up one of the certificates. "Really good. But they're forgeries." I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The hospital listed here, Mercy General in Portland, closed down in 2015. A full year before this was supposedly issued. Whoever made these went to a lot of effort to make them look real. So, "I'm not crazy," I said softly. "Those aren't my children." "No," Sarah confirmed, leaning back. "But someone wanted everyone to believe they are. The real question is on why." I picked up one of the photos again, staring at those faces. They do look like David. And if the timing lines up... My voice faltered. "Maybe they're real, just not mine." Sarah's eyes sharpened. "Victoria, be honest. Is there any chance, any at all, that you could have had children during that time?" I shook my head. No, I was depressed, yes, but not detached from reality. The fertility treatments had failed. David had already started pulling away. But I would remember being pregnant. I'd know if I were a mother. Sarah nodded. "Then the next step is finding out whose children these are, and why your ex's family thinks they belong to you." Just then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression darkening. "Speaking of David," she said grimly, "he just filed for an emergency custody hearing. He's claiming you kidnapped his children 6 years ago." I stood up, shock freezing my blood. "He can't do that. There are no children to have custody of." "Sit down," Sarah said firmly. "This is actually good. It means we can question him under oath. He'll have to explain where these supposed kids have been." I sank back into my chair, my mind racing. Then a thought hit me. What if he does have children somewhere? What if he had them with someone else, while we were still married? Sarah's eyes lit with sudden realization. That's actually possible. She turned to her computer, typing rapidly. After a few moments, she stopped and turned the screen toward me. "Meet Emily Carson, pediatric nurse at County General. Started there 7 years ago, right when you and David were in fertility treatment." I leaned in, my stomach twisting. The photo showed a smiling woman, blonde, pretty, holding 2 dark-haired children. The same children from the photos. Those were her kids. 6 years ago, Sarah continued, scrolling through more records. Emily Carson filed a paternity suit against a local businessman. Case sealed. "But the timing fits, David," I whispered. "He got her pregnant while I was still trying to have children with him. He told his family I was the mother to cover up his affair." Sarah nodded slowly. "And now that Emily's story is surfacing, He's trying to rewrite history to protect himself. But he made one big mistake. What's that? Sarah held up one of the forged birth certificates, pointing to the names. He kept Emily's original names for the twins, James and Lily Carson. Not Henderson. Not Reed. She began gathering the papers into a folder. The emergency hearing is tomorrow. I think it's time we invite Ms. Carson to tell her side of the story. I stared down at the photo again. Those two innocent faces smiling up at me. David's children. But not mine. His family didn't know. They actually believed I was some kind of monster who had stolen their grandchildren. That's exactly what David wanted them to believe. Sarah said softly. It was easier than admitting the truth. Well, I stood up straightening, my shoulders. Let's see how they handle the truth now. As I left Sarah's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. We're praying you'll do the right thing and bring our grandchildren home. I saved the message tomorrow. They learned exactly what the right thing was, and it wasn't what they expected looking at Emily's photo again. I felt a strange mix of emotions. These children who could have been mine. In another life were innocent in all this, they deserved to know their family, their real story, and tomorrow, one way or Rano, the truth would come out. I just hoped. They were ready for it. The courtroom was packed the next morning. David sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing the same self-righteous expression I remembered from our divorced Margaret, and Amanda sat directly behind him, shooting daggers at me with their Sarah had positioned me perfectly, just close enough to Emily Carson that, when she walked in with the twins, David's face went completely white. What is she doing here? He hissed. To his lawyer before anyone could respond. The judge entered and called the emergency hearing to order. David's lawyer jumped up, launching into an impassionate speech about a mother, stealing children away, about grandparents' rights, and about family reunification. I watched Margaret dabbing her eyes with a tissue, completely caught up in the performance she really had no idea what her precious son had done. Your Honor, Sarah said, when it was our turn, before we proceed, I'd like to enter into evidence the true birth certificates of James and Lily Carson, along with their mother's paternity suit from 6 years ago. David's lawyer objected, but Sarah was ready. The children Mr. Henderson claims were stolen from him. They're sitting right here with their actual mother, Emily Carson. The only person doing any stealing is Mr. Henderson, stealing the truth from his family and trying to steal these children's identities. The judge looked at the documents, then at David, whose confidence was visibly crumbling. Mr. Henderson, would you, explain why there are 2 different birth certificates for these children? There must be some mistake. Cavid stammered the mistake. Emily Carson spoke up from behind me. Her voice, strong and clear, was thinking, you could hide the truth forever. David, these are my children, our children, the ones you denied until it became convenient to claim them. The guests from Margaret and Amanda were audible. The judge called a brief recess to review all the evidence. But the damage was done. I watched as David's carefully constructed eye fell apart around him during the break. Margaret approached me in the hallway, her face ashing. Victoria, we didn't know. He told us you had a breakdown, that you took the babies and ran, and you believed him. I said quietly. Just, you believed him when he said our fertility treatments failed because of my stress, because it was easier than questioning your perfect son. She started to respond. But Emily walked up with the twins. Mrs. Henderson, I think it's time. You met your grandchildren. Properly this time. I slipped away as Margaret faced the reality of what her son had done. The tears in her eyes were different now, shame and regret replacing righteous, anger back in the courtroom. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. Not only was David's emergency custody petition denied, but he was also facing potential criminal charges for filing false documents. The judge ordered a full investigation into the forged birth certificates. I hope it was worth it, I said to David as he hurried past. Me afterward all his years of lies just to avoid admitting you had an affair. He stopped, turning to face me. You were always so perfect, weren't you? The successful lawyer? The victim you have no idea what it's like disappointing everyone? No, I cut him off. I just know what it's like to be disappointed by you, by your family, by their willingness to believe the worst of me rather than the truth about you. 6 months later. I received a letter from Emily. She enclosed a photo of the twins at their 7th birthday party, surrounded by the Henderson family, minus David, who was serving time for document fraud. They ask about you sometimes, she wrote. I tell them you're the brave lady who helped their grandparents find them. Maybe someday when they're older they'll understand. The whole story. I pinned the photo to my office wall next to my law degree and the newspaper article about David's conviction, not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I gained: the truth, my reputation, and finally closure. Mar still sends me Christmas cards each. One contains an apology, as if she's trying to make up for years of blind faith in her son. I keep them in a drawer. Unopened, some wounds take longer to heal than others. As for me, I sold my house and moved to a new city, starting fresh where no one knew my story. My new office has a view of the sunrise, and every morning I remind myself that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you exactly where you need to be. The children who were never mine are happy, loved and surrounded by family who finally knows the truth in the end. That's worth more than any victory in court. And sometimes on quiet evenings, I look at their photo and smile, knowing that doing the right thing meant letting go of the lie that had haunted us all.